All right, welcome back. Back by unpopular demand. We have the powers that be, the combined forces of crazy knowledge and crazy weird things that we have always talked about. We are Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. I am Eric Simpson, one of the admins here with Jason King. Hello,
Hey
Jason.
guys, hey, it's good to talk to you again, Eric. Nice to see you. Thanks for zooming me on a Monday afternoon and making my day a little bit better.
Any excuse to hear myself talk and drink whiskey. That's a
good way to go.
That's a good thing. So, Jason, you and I in the group are probably some of the more learned on kind of these kind of sleeper whiskeys, I guess you could call it. You like to call them punch above the belt whiskeys. I want you, if you don't mind, to tell our listeners, tell our viewers what you think that is, and kind of give your thoughts on it a little bit.
Yeah, so this really started for me in my quest to try and find bottles that punched above their weight class. To borrow that boxing term, or they punch higher than their shelf. You got your bottom shelf, your mid shelf, your top shelf. Trying to find yourself something that's drinkable on a daily basis, that doesn't break the bank, that you can reasonably find, and that doesn't give you a headache the next day, I guess.
Right. Right.
And I really started this when I was looking into scotches, because I got into bourbon from scotch because bourbon was cheaper. And so I was already trying to find this perfect sweet spot to be at with a bottle of scotch. And then when I switched over to bourbon, it was like I had a bunch of found money, because bottles didn't cost as much as some of those higher age stated scotches. So I burned through some of that stuff and I got tired of spending that money. And I started thinking, well, gosh, I really knew what I like to gravitate towards as far as scotches went. I could probably apply the same rule to bourbon. Thing is, when you go into a shop and you're looking for bourbons, you've got the ones that you see on pages, the ones that everyone's out there trying to find, looking for, dropping hints where they can get it. And then you've got those ones that are in plastic bottles that you just don't want to go near. And there's something in between. There's definitely something in between. And the goal became, let's find that in between. Let's figure out where it's at. So,
right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well said. I'm very similar. I think me and you are one of the few that kind of started with scotches and got into bourbons. It's a very, very small fraternity. If you want to call it that. No, I'm there with you, man. It became I've always been a penny pincher and even married one. So, always I still to this day are looking for those said things. But no, I came from scotch, where I got started on Lafroig whiskey, like from Islay. Like that's what I got started on. So it's like from the moment I got ruined.
You're born in the wrong era, man.
Oh my, it's insane. Started there.
Like, you know how hipsters today try and find like the worst tasting IPA they can find. That's what the hipsters from 30 years ago used to go, is just try and find the nastiest peated scotch they could get their hands on. So you're just born out of your time, man. You should have been 50 years older.
I looked like one of those guys that was in like the paintings from Cheers in the opening thing. Just cheersing up. But no, I'm there with you every step of the way. It was an affordability thing for me, and to me it was like, me and you've discussed it plenty of times. I've had whiskey. I've had enough whiskey to know what is like. Okay, yeah, maybe the $50 bottle that I bought tastes better than this $20 bottle, but does it taste $30 better than this $20 bottle?
Yeah, that's
probably
that's
not.
The question, isn't it? Yep, that's the question you're always asking.
Yeah, so at that point, I'm sitting here, kind of going through my own thing, because I'm infamous, and Sean can attest to this. I am infamous for buying a bottle, taking a sip of it, saying it's good, and then never tasting it again. Like I will always do that. My shelf, the whole collection is just full of crap like that, and I'm just terrible at it. But I'm always willing to share my whiskey. Like anybody comes over, if it's open, we're drinking it. But it's like I maybe have 5 or 6 whiskeys that I drink on a daily basis, and like those are the ones that I always like keep keep stock. But it's like if I go and I say, oh, if I say, oh, I'm going to buy, and let's just, say OGD 114. If I'm going to get some of that. Like, oh man, this is good whiskey, and then it's like, I won't touch it yet. But but I know it's good whiskey. It's just that's not one of the ones that I always keep. So what Jason and I kind of were brainstorming a little bit were we came up with two separate little categories, and ours will be obviously a little different, but we might have some similarities. So I chose American whiskeys that punched above their weight, $50 or less. That I think that was the criteria. $50 or less that punch above their weight. And then scotches or world whiskeys, except Irish. Yeah, except Irish. Anything under $70. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through our kind of little favorite ones that we kind of go to when we go to the liquor store. And for everybody that's listening, this is not what we say. These are the best 5. These are whatever. These are just 5 that Jason and I like and what we go to. And, for all the weight and intents and purposes, we put our name behind.
Yeah. And it's something that if you haven't had it and you see us talk about it here, you might say to yourself, oh, let me grab a bottle of that next time I'm out because it's only $30 or, it's not
right, of course.
You're not mortgaging the house to get something. We can sit around and talk about top tier whiskeys all day and all night, but the amount of people that are able to go out and get their hands on those things is not worth talking about. So,
and I promise I only have one Wild Turkey product in my list.
Oh, well, I got the other 4 then, so don't worry about it. And what you said is just right. So to get us started, you said this is basically you go to the store. That's the motivation for this. What are you going to do when you go to the store? So what I did was I just went to the store, started walking through, seeing what I could find. Now, I'm out here in Arizona, and distribution's a little bit different out here. We got a lot of the same stuff, but we got a little bit greater access to it. For instance, I can buy 6 bottles of Buffalo Trace at the grocery store, and they'll give me a discount on it. Like, it's sitting in boxes out here.
Right.
But the things that I wanted to try and stick towards would be things that we would find on a normal basis for regardless of our location. First one, coming in at $32.99, and this was available to me at a Costco, is Russell's 10. This bottle is, if you're out there chasing a 10-year-old Eagle Rare and you can't ever find it for $32, but this one you can get in spades for $32 at 10 years. Boy, it's really hard to turn that down, isn't it? And it's 45%.
90 proof. Yeah.
It's right there. So this is one of those ones that I think to get an age stated whiskey sub 50, even sub 40, and for it to be 10 years, can't go wrong with that. Another one I picked out here. This one's $39.99. So right at $40 is the Bottled and Bond Heaven Hill. We're starting to see a lot more of this out here.
Okay.
Are you guys able to get that one?
Yep. So it's showed up a lot more as non-allocated now. So it's like I'm seeing it starting to sit.
Starting to hit. Yep. And they're landing at Costco for $40 out here. So I remember with first bottle I saw that, I was in San Diego traveling for business, and they were just starting to roll out. Stores had them up on their top shelves for $80, $90. And it was just like, I got one. I think I spent $70 on it and took it home, and I said, damn, this doesn't drink like $70. But it drinks like $40,
Right. I wouldn't be mad at it if I paid that for it.
No, same cost for $40. You're sitting Angel's Envy. Angel's Envy is one of those gateway bourbons. It's one of the ones that my wife it's one of the first ones that she really enjoyed, was to sit down and sip on a glass of Angel's Envy. Just their standard 45 proof. Again, nothing crazy. That port finish kind of balances it out a little bit and makes it taste a little bit more approachable, especially since we both came from a lot of sherry finished scotches. So that really reminded us kind of that Scotch palate that we were used to hitting. And it was a great gateway bourbon for us. I'll say that. So good times.
Wonderful.
I'm going to put one here on the list. See, I got a couple questionable ones. So I was able to score. I got this one the other day for $44, and it's a Barton 1792 full proof. These are not as easy to come by, and that kind of violates one of the rules. But I think the only reason I brought it out here is because at $44, which you'll start to see some of the picks that the guys are doing up in Tampa, halfway up to Sarasota, they're hitting about that same price point, 43, 44 bucks for a single barrel pick of these.
It's funny. It's funny, Jason. I see the picks more than I do of the
The
regular.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
funny.
and this is incredible. This is one of my favorite
Great
cask
whiskey.
strength bourbon. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have an age statement on it. Doesn't need one. Comes in, they're always about 62, 63%, just absolute monsters. So if you see one of these and you're like, oh, I see 1792 all the time in the red label, look for that black label. That black label is a little bit extra, a little more special. So some other ones that I was out on the store looking at, Henry McKenna is sitting on the shelf right now for 65 bucks. I hate to see that because that used to be a $35 shelfer that we get our hands on. It's a 10-year single barrel Heaven Hill. And that's like Russian roulette because some of them are great. Some of them are really great.
Yeah.
Some of them are garbage. It's kind of fun at 35 bucks. That's not
Yeah,
any
it
fun
was
at
a great
65.
gamble.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
I'm
like
not
$10
gambling anymore.
hands of 20. That's like $10 hands of blackjack, versus 100.
Yeah. And then the ones, another one I'm going to mention, the Knob Creek 9-year 120 proof. That's another one that I'm still able to find for $49.99 out here on the shelves. Also a single barrel product, age stated, cask strength, just checks a lot of the boxes for me. I don't know how hard those are getting for you guys to find down there. Are they reasonably tough?
They're easy to find. Every kind of major store has them, and even Dave carries just kind of the regular.
Yeah.
But for a minute there, when Beam was taking the age statements away, but they put them back, they kind of they disappeared for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly right. But glad it's back now, and I can still find it for less than 50. Because I think that one tastes better than the 12-year, and that 12-year is going for 70 bucks, 80 bucks. That the price on that one's really crept up. And it's only 100 proof. So
right.
What are you going to do, right?
Of course.
You mentioned one of my favorites, Old Granddad 114. I've tried the other two versions of the Old Granddad. Don't like them quite as much. Something about the 114's got a little bit more sweetness, a little bit more flavor complexity. And it's sitting on the shelf at Total Wine for $23. That's less than half of what the cutoff was. I think that's probably my number two next to this bad boy. Number two is probably, if you don't have a bottle of Old Granddad 114 sitting around, you're doing something wrong. So go grab one of those. I'm getting kind of close to the end of my bourbons and starting to come into ryes, but I would not be a very good bourbon drinker if I didn't mention Wild Turkey 101. And I mentioned it. Yeah, I mentioned it both in the 750 for $21 and then in the 1.75 for $35. So even if you're getting a handle, you're still getting sub 50, and you can drink it neat. You can throw a rock on it. You don't feel like you're wasting high quality whiskey. If you want to go drink it out in the sun, you can use it as a mixer. Nothing wrong with 101.
You've got it. Yes.
Solid whiskey. And his big brother, the Rare Breed, also good. Honorable mention. A little bit above $50 in most cases, so maybe not necessarily right for this list. Redwood Empire Pipe Dream is another one around that $30 mark that I find to be incredibly approachable. And that concludes my basic punch above the weight class list of whiskeys from the bourbon side of things. I got some ryes and some world whiskeys to talk about a little bit later, but I want to give you a chance to talk too.
All right. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you said most of mine. I'm just kidding. No, I'm with you. I have always been a big proponent. My kind of number one kind of punch above the weight whiskey is Russell's 10. It's like I said, I love an oakier bourbon. So obviously if you're not into oak, it's probably not your jam. However, it's a 10-year product and it's Wild Turkey. So it's not just a 10-year product. It's kind of like how it has kind of replaced. See, one of my favorite whiskeys of all time has disappeared, and it's not a Wild Turkey product. I love the old Elijah Craig 12-year, the old Big Red 12s. Those are just some of the best, easiest sipping whiskeys you could ever drink. And to me, this has kind of replaced it in the market. Elijah Craig went the way of the marketing beast and kind of did their thing. And I love the arrogance of Wild Turkey. Is like, well, we did it this way. We're going to keep doing it. Screw you.
Yeah. And this is worth mentioning, but they put signatures on these bottles. And when you see people putting their names on it, sometimes that's a little bit different, because some of the distilleries out of Scotland will do that. I know Willet is really big about releasing 50 different products to the market, but only using the name Willet on certain ones that they claim to be up to par for what their family name is. So when you start putting your signature on things, I know it can look a little gimmicky or whatever, but it really does mean something. I mean, they got their signatures in the glass, like it's in the glass
right?
too. So
I've even heard them on podcasts and stuff saying just if they don't find that whiskey to be up to their par, they're not going to put their name on it. It's like
happens.
it's the what is it, the Whiskey Barons collection, like the like, oh shoot, I hear them. I was like WB Saffel, Old Rippy, and those, like, two of them don't have their name on it. They put their name on Saffel.
Exactly.
they wanted their name, but anyway. So yeah, Russell's 10 was one. I'm going to not cheat, but I'm going to add a rye into this category just because I really do like this rye. I think the Old Forester rye is kind of a big puncher. That is $20 for a liter.
Yep, that's one of the ones I had too.
It is $20 for a liter. It is it's a little more rye than the Kentucky rye as far as its mash bill is concerned. So I think it satisfies both of the types of rye drinkers. Those that are too scared to go all rye, or those that want a true rye. I think it satisfies everything, and it does what you need to do for cocktails and just having it neat. So I'm there with you.
So let me ask you a question on that.
Go ahead.
So Elijah Craig started making their rye not too long ago. It used to be hard to get. Now it's not so tough to find anymore.
It's pretty easy.
It's the same price as that Old Forester, except it's not in a liter, but it's coming through at the same price point. How do you feel about those two? If those two get in a fight, who wins?
I'm going Old Foe. I like the Old Forester. I've blinded that Elijah Craig rye a couple of times, and it's just missing something. Okay. And I don't know if that's a proof thing, but I think it's just missing it's missing oh, this was a new release. And you're like, oh well, it's good. Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with it.
It's like, oh, okay.
I think it's got a little bit less spice in the Elijah Craig. So the Old Forester tends to be a little snappier. But I kind of like that mellower taste of the Elijah Craig sometimes. I like to mix it up. I wouldn't be mad at either one if someone poured it for me. But that's a good fight to say, here's two very comparable ryes sitting on the shelf, as opposed to a Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse is in a similar category, similar price point. It's just a little bit more pricey, but it's still 100 proof, great rye. Like I'm gonna
throw my next category in to include about 6 or 7 of the same whiskey, and you'll see where I'm going with this. So I'm gonna say Evan Williams Bottled and Bond as one of my punch above the weight ones, but that includes JTS Brown, JW Dant, TW Samuels, all of those Heaven Hill 100 proof Bottled and Bond products.
Ones that we can't get around here.
Right. Evan Williams is going to be the closest one, but all those are all encompassing. If you can find, like, Evan Williams Bottled and Bond is $20 at your regular store, but if you go to Kentucky and you find JTS Brown, it's $13. And it's essentially the same whiskey.
Yep. Good points.
Yeah. So all that encompassing. Honorable mention, which is going to be kind of the unpopular opinion. Mellecorn's got to have a stay somewhere. It's not great, but it's okay.
I read an article that the fan base behind Mellecorn is really a result of guys that were using it to mix, like top tier bartenders. That found just this really unique note from that corn only, just here you go, and a little bit aggressive, and that's where it really earned its chops, was from high-end mixology craft cocktail guys. But you could also drink it, like you said. You could have yourself a pour of it if you like to, and it's not going to make you go blind. I 100% agree. I don't currently own a bottle, but I would probably, for what are they, $20?
$20. It's it.
Yeah.
It's bottled and bond 100 proof corn whiskey.
Exactly. Oops, it fell in the cart.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get mad that I spent money on it. It's
right.
Yeah, that's
Good
kind
point.
of that's the big one there. Next one, I'll talk a little bit about 101. 101, to me, that was kind of my introductory into refining my palate. Whenever I blinded myself with a bunch of kind of the regular shelfers, and was just like, I would have never bought it. Just from just from what I've heard, I would never have bought it. Love 101. And what I do love about them is, in the realm of saturated markets and age statements going away, is their age statements went away in the 90s. Like their age statements did not go away because of the market here.
Yeah.
They switched their stuff over because of what they were supplying to Japan. They were supplying an age statement market over there because that was in demand. It wasn't in demand here. So 101 lost its age statement. Now, it's always been, and obviously they're corporate owned and Campari, but they're in that kind of family lineage of like, okay, I trust what the guys are saying. And they always say that 101 is about 6 to 8 years old blend, and I segue from 101 to talk about, because I saved the story for this particular chat, was the turkey nerds of the world noticed something that happened a couple years ago. So it was a specific handle of like laser code of 101, whatever batch that happened. So accidentally at the factory, someone dumped some 20-year-old whiskey into the batch that was supposed to go for 101 and got bottled. And so you had a whole bunch of people who were in the know, like, man, this 101 just tastes off. Like, it's just kind of, it's not quite there. It just doesn't taste real good. And it was just kind of this whole big thing, and rumors were circulating. Well, that's basically what happened. And I'm talking to a friend of mine. He's a manager of Justin's House of Bourbon up in Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to him, and he's like, dude, people sit here and will fork out mortgage payments for non-age stated whiskey. I said that, and they'll put out $7,000, $8,000 to buy a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle 20-year-old. He goes,
right.
And these people are complaining about 20-year-old bourbon that got dumped in a $30 product. Get the fuck out of here. Like, oh Lord. So that goes to my point. It's like, appreciate it when it's here. Like, I just hope for the day that it never goes away, but I'm appreciating that it's here. So that's my 101 story. I'm with you again on kind of honorable mention with Rare Breed. Like I said, it's anywhere from $45 to $55, just depending, but you can't get a better age stated whiskey that's not too oaky, that isn't Booker's or Knob Creek 120.
Yeah, and you can find it at Costco sometimes still.
And you can find it. I'm gonna throw in a Buffalo Trace product. I wouldn't have said it, but I'm going to, just because of the tasting that we did. I'm gonna say Benchmark Top Floor.
Yeah, I had a bottle of that not too long ago.
It's not bad at all. Because we were going through that little tasting, and we tried it, and it got second to the full proof. And it's like, it beat out the bottled and bond, it beat out the single barrel, it beat out all these things that had a higher proof than it. Like, it was, I think it was just 90, but it just had kind of it had a great little caramel flavor, and it was like, this $20. It's not bad at all.
So they keep those in the Rick right next to where the tornado survivors were, right? Is that what I understand? So the tornado survivors were up in the corner, and you go there, you see, oh yeah, that's where the corner went. But if I could see past that corner, that's where they put those benchmarks.
And
that's where they go.
And one's about 10 more grand than the other.
Hey, I mean, I like when you take the Buffalo Trace tour and they walk you through and they're like, see where the bricks change color And then they point out warehouse age, like, oh, see that metal building over there? And like, oh, and up on the hill, that's where they used to throw parties, and they'd send them down to go get the Blantons. And, they tell you all the stories, and you're putting it together, and you're going, oh, wow, that doesn't look like it adds $3,000 to the value of a bottle, but okay, So,
I got an honorable mention, and this will kind of segue out of my bourbons into the ryes, and then we can dive into yours. I'm going to throw in Knob Creek twice barreled rye.
I can't find that.
It comes in at about $50, but it is damn tasty. It is quite delicious. I'm not a rye fan by any stretch of the means, and my favorite rye whiskeys are either straight Kentucky ryes or a high rye that's been finished in something.
Yep.
That's tend to be what I gravitate to, but just a straight 95.5, I kind of get put off a little bit, but I will try it. If I like it, I like it. At the end of the day.
I tend to like those. I like those a little bit more. I would say my top rye has got to be Willett Family Estate, those 4 years when you can get your hands on them. And those, unfortunately, have gotten a little bit more expensive, but it's got such a unique flavor profile. It doesn't play around with the rye notes. It smacks you in the face, but it still hits you with like caramel and brown sugar and stays on that sweeter side, almost like a bourbon. So, and I know a lot of people hate it, absolutely hate it, along with the pot still. Like there's a lot of Willett products out there that people just won't go near with a stick. I'm the opposite of that guy. I think they're putting out great boutique style whiskeys,
of course,
mass distribution. So
my last one on my list, for kind of the punch above the weight category, is going to be a little higher price, but it's going to be closer to 50. But I'm a big fan of Chattanooga 95. Just
that's really good, isn't it?
Just the regular Joe Blow Chattanooga.
Yeah, it really is. That's a decent one. That was one of my first exposures to Chattanooga was when we did that very first tasting back forever ago, and I was really blown away by that one. Really blown away.
I think they figured out their little niche and how they can escape the nuances of trying to over oak shit, and I think they figured it out. So it's good whiskey.
I do too, and hats off to those guys because they're coming out of Tennessee, and sometimes that's a strike against you. And they're not distributed out here. I pull out a bottle of Chattanooga for somebody, and they're like, "Whoa!" Like they think it's something special because we get the Facebook ads, like we see. Whether or not you can go to your store and get it, you're still getting ads in Facebook.
Let me order from Drizzly here.
Yeah, I'll be here in 8 to 9 months.
Let's segue into your ryes and some of your world whiskeys there, Mr. Jason.
So the only ryes that I have on my list that you missed are none of them. You got them all. The only other one I put on there was the Rittenhouse.
Okay.
And I did it because I guess I'm a sucker for Heaven Hill. I really do like Heaven Hill products.
I do too.
And for its price point, and you're starting to see those picks every now and again. The pick that we did for that was just insane.
Yeah, and, $20. Yeah.
I should have bought 6 of them, right? Woulda, coulda, shoulda. But no, you covered everything I had on there. Absolutely every single one you knocked off. So
awesome.
Good job, buddy. You want to move into Scotch?
Yeah. Let's move in there. Wait a minute, quote unquote, world whiskeys.
World whiskeys. All right.
So my number one punch above the weight world whiskey is the Naked Grouse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That is, and here's my reasoning. So I got lucky and fell into this little mom and pop liquor store one time. It's about 4 years ago, and they had the famous Grouse 18-year malt whiskeys just sitting there. Had probably 10 inches of dust on them for $60. And I'm sitting there like, how are these still here? And I knew they were getting discontinued, but I was like, that's basically some 18-year-old Macallan in Highland Park, like just some sherried Macallan,
Yeah.
So I bought 4 of them, and that's just a delicious whiskey. But segueing, the Naked Grouse is Highland Park and Macallan, and even it's, I would say it tastes more sherried Macallan, but it's very, it's out of the base lineup of the Famous Grouse, it's the only one that is a malt.
Hmm.
The rest of them are just a blended Scotch. So this one actually is malt whiskey. So it has those kind of very sugary cereal notes. It has that kind of little nuance of a fruit flavor in the background, and it's $33.
Yeah, no kidding. I might have to give that
Um,
another run.
yeah, it's I enjoy it, and as someone who, as you so eloquently put it, was born out of my time frame and got tried on iodine first. Uh, it is my favorite non peated affordable Scotch. So I'll say that much.
Well, that's a good one. That's a good first pick. So when we went to Scotland about 10 years ago and did the distillery tours. We went to Macallan, and right there in Dufftown, what a lot of people don't realize, and it's very similar to the Bourbon Trail. You hit one distillery and you pick up a rock and throw it, you're hitting another one. So just right across the
Mm-hmm.
street from Macallan, you've got uh, Glenfiddich. Right next door to Glenfiddich, like sharing a hedge, you've got Balvenie. They're all just like pocketed in right there, just right next to each other. And Dufftown, I think, is probably the best bang for your buck. It's the Bardstown of Scotland if you're going to go and take a distillery tour. And they're all sharing the same water sources, pretty much, and they're all sharing the same climate. The only thing they're doing
Right.
different is kind of their ricking structure. But, and some of them are building up new. Macallan's got these fancy new spaceship rick houses that they put in. You go across the street to Balvenie, if you can even get in there, and it's like they're in caves. They're tucked away in the side, stuff that's been there for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Same
Yep.
thing with Glenfiddich. Their ricks are old. They're not trying to impress the tourism, big fancy spin. They're like, no, we've been doing this for centuries. Like, boom, and over here on the wall, here's all the guys that have been doing it for the last 3 centuries. So, which brings me probably to my number one favorite punch above the weight class, which is the Glenfiddich 14. So
Mm-hmm.
right across the street from Macallan. And it's the cool thing about the Glenfiddich 14 is, they finish it in new oak, similar to what you do with bourbon. So
Yep.
for those that aren't 100% versed in scotches, in order for something to be considered a scotch, it's got to sit in a barrel for at least 3 years that used to hold bourbon. So you go over to Scotland and you walk the yards where they have all the barrels laying out there, and you'll see Jack Daniels, you'll see Buffalo Trace, you'll see the stamps on the barrel heads from all these things that we love because they're storing their whiskeys in there for their first round of however many years they do. And then they finish this one in new oak, just like a bourbon. So you tend to get some of that caramel, some of that vanilla, lots of vanilla actually. It gives it a little bit more of a softer, less of a Scotch bite. So Glenfiddich 14, that's my number one punch above the weight class Scotch that's out there. But again, that's $50, so that is a little bit pricier.
Right.
So if you want to hit a little cheaper. And one more thing that I want to mention is that when I was at the store looking at the Glenfiddich 14, it's sitting on the shelf for $46.99. Okay, so $47. Right next to it is the 12-year at $44. So if you can show me somewhere where you can buy 2 years for, what is that, $4? It's a good jump. Instead of grabbing that green label Glenfiddich 12, grab that blue tube instead. I think you'd be a lot happier with that product. But probably my bargain basement one, and it's getting more expensive just like everything else, but the Glenmorangie 10. The Glenmorangie 10 is just a nice, soft, sweet bottle that's not heavily anything. And it'll hold up an ice cube. It'll drink neat. Just a good overall delicious whiskey.
Wonderful. I'm with you. I'm gonna put my next one up is going to be Scarabeus batch proof.
Oh, is that one good?
Yeah, so it is right at $50. It is 120-ish proof.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's high. And it's basically 120 something proof Caol Ila. Scarabeus sources their whiskey from Caol Ila, so that's basically what you're getting. But for a high proof because I like one of my favorite Islay scotches is Lagavulin Distillers Edition.
Mhm.
It's 16 year. It's double matured. It's got sherried. It settles down the peat a little bit and kind of makes it a little more elegant, for lack of a better term. But then it's almost like you are so used to eating nice fancy Wagyu steaks that every now and again you just want you a big greasy Five Guys burger. This is the greasy Five Guys burger.
That's a good point. And the high proof scotches are not easy to come by.
No. Yeah, I
So
saw it one time.
So even if you can come by, like, and I had a couple of the other higher proof ones on here that I was looking through. I used to love the Glenlivet Nadura, the
Mm-hmm.
Oloroso Sherry finish, all three of the offerings they had from the Nadura line. Can't find them anywhere. Those are gone, so they're just not on shelves anymore. A lot of the Ardbeg higher proof stuff, the Oudale, hands down, probably my favorite peated scotch. Like that's just and it's one you can go find on the shelf right now because
Yep.
nobody's buying it at $90. It's a little more
That
expensive.
and the Corey Reckon.
Yeah, I don't see that one
Yeah.
as often. I always see the Oudale. That one's always out there, and that one's got so much leather, apple, and
Mm-hmm.
things that like you say that go with the peat, so that the peat isn't its own thing, but it's a
Right.
blending element to the other flavors. That's really what you're looking for.
Yep.
And you know what else I'm going to put on the list because I just saw this when I was at Total Wine. It was the Nika from the barrel, that
Yep.
little square bottle. They had that guy sitting on the shelf for I think it was $67.99, and that comes right in under our $70 mark. And that's basically a bottled and bond. It's 51.4%.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's got that 50% higher proof value. And there's one more I want to add to that category now that we're kind of talking more like the higher end stuff. Have you ever had, this one comes from India. Have you had Amrut Fusion?
Yes.
So Amrut does this thing where they take some of their malt from a region in India, and then they take some of their malt from Scotland, and they combine them, and that's what the fusion is all about. But they bottle it at 50%, and it's soft on every level. Every flavor profile is just dialed in so delicately, but then they crank it up to 50% so that it hits you a little bit harder. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a really cool twist on how they did that. But again, that one, I think when I saw it, yeah, that was coming in at $86. So
Yep.
it's above what we're looking for. But there's a lot of
Still good.
$86 whiskeys there's a lot of $86 scotches on the shelf that
Right.
if I'm going to grab something for that money, I think that still classifies as punching above its class, even though it's not
Oh
down
yeah.
on that bottom price line.
I'll add one. I'll add one to that at a similar price point. I'm going to say it's 82. But Glen Scotia, 15 year.
Yeah, haven't had that one.
Now, now, obviously Campbelltowns are going to be a little harder to find, but it is still considered able to find because it's not allocated or anything. It's just more like regionality of who's got it. And it wasn't until recently
who's buying it, who's carrying it.
Right. It wasn't until recently until we started getting Glen Scotia, and but it is, if you subscribe to the nuances that are at Campbelltown, you will love this whiskey. It's rich, it's dark. You get that kind of dunnage type of funk that everybody talks about with Campbelltown, without it being peaty and smoky. So it's almost like I don't know. I don't know if you've had that Maker's Mark cellar age, but it kind of tastes very similar to that. It's like it didn't age really hot, but it aged humid.
Okay.
It tastes wetter than what it is, I guess you could say. It's kind of it's a weird whiskey, but it's like you're drinking it and it's like this feels like this was aged in like Florida.
Little bits of alligator in it.
Yeah, it's a Campbelltown's a whole different region, but on that same ticket, I'll throw in Glen Scotia Double Oak, which is 50, and that's a bourbon that's a bourbon and then a sherry oak. It's not age stated, but it's $50, and like I said, it tastes delicious. It does what it needs to do.
Yeah, and Campbelltown's what I find are kind of in this little weird demographic. There's a liquor store owner out here. He's got tons of barrel picks for bourbon. He loves bourbon. He's got high proof rums, mostly from Foursquare and places like that. And he's got a whole shelf full of Campbelltowns. And so, those
Like
guys have
long
that.
row and all that stuff.
Yeah, like that
Springbank.
palate that if you are a bourbon guy, if you try a high proof rum, and if you decide you're a high proof rum guy, go try a Campbelltown. We're all the same people pretty much. So,
Yeah,
but I know a
no,
lot
I'm
of
with
people
you.
stay away from the Campbelltowns because Highlands are the gateway. You get in through
Right.
the Highlands. If you
Yep.
survive, you'll grab an Isla. And if you like the Islas and you like the Highlands, then you'll start exploring some of the other little teeny tiny islands. And my
Yep.
favorite teeny tiniest island in Scotland that makes booze is Arran.
Okay.
So there's the Isle of Arran distillery. They opened up in about 96. So they're super, super new. And some of their founders' reserves, it's like the first stuff that came off the still. You can start to find those out on the market now because they've aged to a point where they're starting to release them. Price has gone up a little bit. Used to be able to get Arran's at Total Wine in some of the more goofy finishes for around $70. Their basic 10-year now is just $1 higher than our price cutoff, $71. But I think Arran is definitely one of those distilleries that a lot of people haven't tried because it is one of those funkier islands, but it plays well to a Highland. If you like Highlands, you could try an Arran and you probably like it. And if you can find any of those strange wine finishes that they've got in their old style tubes, just buy those on site because they're all incredible. All terrific whiskeys, especially if they've still got them priced down in the 60s.
I've got two more just off the top of my head that I'll add to the world whiskey category. So controversial pick. I'm going to go instead of the Ardbeg 10. I'm going to go with the Ardbeg Wee Beastie.
Yeah, you like that one?
I over and my reason being is they are basically the same price, but half the age.
Right.
One has a little more sherry. One has a little more sherry influence, which Ardbeg typically doesn't do a lot of sherry finish things. They're mostly what you get is what you get. Now some of their higher age stuff, like some of the community releases, some of those they can do some funky stuff, but like their basic stuff is just their own shit. Like that's their nuanced stuff, which is I find delicious. But that Wee Beastie kind of, I think it's opposite of what it names entails. Like I think it actually tames what Ardbeg is. If you get an Ardbeg 10, it's like, all right, I got this big, slab of salty meat mixed with a little bit of smoke. It's just just super peaty. But I think the Ardbeg Wee Beastie is a little more subdued, and I think approachable when it comes to if you're trying to gateway.
Because that's always been my criticism of the 10 is that it's a lot of smoke and not a whole lot else. Like it's just a
Mm-hmm.
big punch of smoke so that you can say this is a quintessential peated Isla Scotch, but it's not anything interesting on top of it.
Yep.
So
So I'll throw the Wee Beastie over the 10, and then one of my finals. I know I'm forgetting quite a few, but that's another day. But one of my final ones, I'll say the Glenlivet Caribbean Cask.
that one is pretty good. It
The
really
rum
is.
the rum finished. I want to say that one's $45.
Yeah, those are easy to come by too.
And that one is more versatile than most scotches because that one actually tastes like you can do some kind of funky cocktails with it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have just that straight kind of young barley taste. It's got a little bit of fruit. It's got you get kind of that that molassesy kind of background from the rum. It is a very versatile whiskey. Like you said, have it on ice, have it with a cocktail, have it neat. $45.
Still works. Still works. Man, that's you got a lot on your list there that you definitely play more in the smoke side than I do, for sure.
And if I hadn't started there, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't have gone there.
It's exactly kind of the same reason I got started in wild turkey was somebody had to blind me. But a lot of my favorite whiskeys they don't make this list. In the Scotch realm, but I love the Balvenis. I love Abelauer. You know, I love
I had an
those
Avalor
types of
12 on
whiskey.
there. Yep, that's what
Yeah,
I picked as another one. But they're
yeah, Avalor's delicious.
they're just getting more and more expensive, you know, and that's, I hate to sound like a broken record with the cost of everything going up, but you know, if you're anything like me, my paycheck hasn't kept pace with inflation. And so when you start tightening the belt somewhere, you're going to start tightening the belt with your luxuries, because you still got to put your gas in your car. You still got to buy your groceries. You still got to take your kids to school and pay for all that stuff. So, you know, in terms of necessities, the whiskey drinkers hobby probably is the thing that needs to go on the chopping block. And so that's when you start looking for the things that you punch above the weight class on.
And I'll go back and we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap it up with this, but I'll go back to something that I heard on a podcast one time, and it was from some people from Heaven Hill. You know, it's like the whiskey nerds will always be the whiskey nerds, but we are not who put the lights on for the distillery. It's the everyday drinker is what puts the lights on for the distillery. And at the end of the day, you know, obviously I'm gonna vodka and Irish whiskey aside, these distilleries that are making quality whiskey are not going to put it in a bottle and say, this tastes like shit. I hope somebody buys it for $14.
Yeah.
They're not gonna put, you know, it's, when we're talking legalities of it being a straight whiskey or et cetera, but they're not gonna put something that says Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey into a bottle. That's why Jim Beam White Label doesn't taste like shit. I mean, it's okay. No, a whiskey nerd's not gonna buy it, but for 80 proof Kentucky straight bourbon, it tastes fine. Like, it doesn't taste bad.
Yep.
That's the big difference.
It's better than a plastic tub of Black Velvet or Windsor Canada, or, you know,
don't even get me started. Traveler's whiskey.
Yeah. So I used to be a merchant at a Total Wine, and we used to have requirements for how much of that stuff we would keep on the shelf. Like, they had these little colored stickers, so you know if you had to have like 4 shelves of it, 3 shelves of it, because there's just this steady stream of dudes that come in and they don't even look at it. They just know by muscle memory where it is on the shelf, and they just lean over and they grab a handle and they just walk to the door, and they're just grab and go that plastic bottle every single time. And I know that there's a day on my calendar coming when all this whiskey gets more and more expensive, and I retire into a fixed income, and I'm going to be the guy that goes in there and I got my hand on that Ensign Red, and I go, nope, too expensive, Black Velvet.
Give me that Black Velvet. or what's the Kentucky Tavern? You know.
My parents were Lord Calvert drinkers for the longest time. Woo! Yeah, that's where I got it from, I think.
Oh my lord. Oh my lord. Well, Jason, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and us collaborating again. We need to make it more often. I think we can blow the world up with with what we can accomplish.
Yeah, and to the people that sit down and watch these things with us, thanks again for taking the ride along with us and listening to our opinions on this stuff. You know, again, we can sit here and we can talk to each other, but it's really a lot about sharing some of the mistakes we've made and revealing some of the hidden gems we've identified along the way. So if any of that's of any value to you, and you heard anything in here and you said, oh yeah, I've seen that on the shelf, maybe I'll grab a bottle of that next time I'm in the store. Give it a try. And then you can send hate mail to him via messenger if you need to.
Yeah, so, I'll tell you, if you send me hate mail saying I hate this whiskey, I'm gonna say, well, aren't you glad you didn't pay $80 for it?
Right, exactly. Mail me the rest of it.
Yeah, I'll take it. I will pay postage and still be under.
I'll swing by the house. I'll be there in 20 minutes.
Oh my lord. But anyway, well, for those that don't know, so we are part of the Southwest Florida Bourbon Society. We have our Facebook page, you know, Southwest Florida Bourbon Society, Instagram, all the things on social media. We do all kinds of events, provide all kinds of content, all kinds of single barrel releases. Please give us a like, share, and subscribe for the YouTube channel. We're trying to get it back up and running. We had it going there for a second, but trying to do it again. Yep. I'm just throwing it out there. Our best viewed one was me and you on that first one, so I'm just throwing it out there.
Hey, you know.
But anywho, so no, thanks everybody for stopping in and taking a listen. And until next time, cheers.
Yep. Take it easy, guys.